Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio on the web at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
Well, here I am. Here it is. Well, a beautiful day at the harbor in Washington State. Boy, the weather is hot. The other problem is my air conditioning is still not hooked up in the studio. And right now, I'm punching about 105 degrees, and it is growing. Hey, Walt, you on here? Hey, Walt, are you on here?
I'm on here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. How's your day going, and how's the weather in your part of the country?
We've been cool. We've been nice. We've been in the 70s.
Well,
I'm in Virginia.
Well, here I am in Washington State. We're in the 90s right now, and I'm not used to it. But earth changes is really going on. A lot of people deny it. But Walt, back here about 2 months ago, we broke a record of 91 degrees. And, the highest temperature 2 months ago was ever recorded was like 71. So we were 20 degrees higher than normal. And what I find really interesting? I have a little mini farm. I got a little fish pond with a lot of little fish in it. Every winter, that thing will freeze solid for a couple months. The last 2 years, 2 years ago, it got a little layer of ice on it. This past winter, nothing. No ice, no nothing. No ice going up my staircase to my house. Something is going on with our weather.
Well, I remember in the 1980s when we first became concerned with a problem that they called a hole in the ozone layer above Antarctica. And they were concerned that this hole or thin spot would allow more sunlight in, cause melting of the ice, and warming, at least for a while. Okay? And I warned, starting, I guess, actually in the 1960s, that one thing that could be occurring would be thin spots in the atmosphere, which could travel. And this was because of ozone thinning. And when you are in a thin spot, what you get is hotter days and colder nights, or hotter summers and colder winters. So I have somewhat disputed the claims of global warming because I think that the problem is an atmospheric thinning, which will allow for more warming and greater colds.
Well, do you feel that was brought on by, well, some people are saying it's because the methane gas from all the cows. I believe that not, well, I know they produce a lot of methane gas, but I think it's all our aerosols, all our cars running around, the planes flying, all that stuff has been thinning out, thinning it out.
Yeah, they changed the formula for aerosols in part because of that. And it was changed for all air conditioning units and for all, like, little products like deodorants and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but
there's also been an increase in concrete, which is reflective. So there's a lot of factors. And, my forte as a psychic or shaman has been to influence weather. And at one point I was hoping that people might learn to care about the environment. And even if there are natural phases that our planet might go through, there is also an impact from our modern civilization. So there are things we could do to improve the situation. And what I have found was that instead of people seeking to learn, they just basically continued living like locusts. I mean, it's sort of sad. In some ways, I can view it as my own failure as a teacher. Yeah. I guess that's a little bit left field from where you were going with all of that. But
no, not really.
You started talking about weather to a person who does weather, so I had to make a comment on it. Right?
Hey, the whole point of my show, unlike a lot of shows, I talk to you like, hey, we're sitting, at a kitchen table and talking to each other and talking about, the paranormal or things, anything to do with the paranormal. Wow. And I failed as a host tonight. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and a little bit about you?
All right. Well, I've described myself as a metaphysician and as a spiritualist, a psychic, a shaman, or a shamus, which is a shaman's shaman in energy hierarchies. I said I'm more akin to being a projector as a psychic than as a receiver, meaning I am more accustomed to channeling universal energies back out rather than just receiving them. In metaphysical or paranormal circles, I've been known as someone with an ability to influence weather. And there have been all kinds of newspaper articles and radio interviews about me since, I guess, 1980 or so. All right, I stood above ground and said I would use my influence to protect a designated area from being hit with the eye of a hurricane. And I picked an area that was prone to being hit. And for 30 years, I had a very, very good track record. And I was once tested by psychic debunker James Randi. And the results of that test are available. And I think I passed, but he never acknowledged me. And he did not debunk me publicly. So in a backhanded way, I gained his, at least, neutrality, right? And in metaphysical circles, I've been known as Walt, which is spelled Jualt, like Juan, but Walt was Spanish phonetics. And for 12 years or more, I was the moderator, editor, and publisher of a forum with no name, which was a forum for those of metaphysics by those of metaphysics. And today I'm basically retired and older and coping with COPD. And I'm somewhat done, except every now and then I get some requests for weather. I like to focus on teaching people how to cope with internal and external negativity in positive ways, and how to create peace of being, peace of mind, because from that wholeness, your energy will flow smoothly, and it can help people to learn how to harness their own psychic abilities.
Well, you know what? I would like to talk about that. We got you for, about 50 minutes. Why don't we talk a little bit about this Planet X and a little bit about UFOs, and then why don't we talk about what you're the guest, and I pretty much leave it up to what the guest wants to talk about. But I've been getting so many people.
Right, well, how did you get interested in Planet X?
Well, I hate to say it. I used to listen to Art Bell from the beginning. Art Bell was a personal friend of mine. He really believed in Planet X. I mean, I've done a lot of research on it. Also, I do feel that it might be appearing. From what I've been reading, that if you're in Antarctica, you can actually spot it. Where everywhere else on this planet is not noticeable yet. That's what I know, and I know that it is going to come between the Earth and the Sun. And some psychics some scientists and a lot of people say it could do major damage to Earth, maybe life extension or extinction on Earth. So, I mean, I just want your point of view on it and how you feel.
I'm not sure that it will come between Earth and the sun, because that would put it very, very close to the sun. I have more of an image of it with an elliptical orbit going outside of Earth, maybe inside the Earth orbit, but not between us and the sun. I think that could be a gravitational problem if it did that. And I don't think its orbit indicates that it would have that kind of a history with us. All right. I mean, I know you can go back to it came around and there was a gravitational collision with one of its moons and a planet, and it ended up putting Mars where Mars is. We ended up where we are. The moon ended up the moon is, and the asteroid belt is the shattered remains. And then a few orbits later, they came here searching for, allegedly, for minerals and things and for our resources, got tired of doing the work and genetically modified the hominids and created what became modern man, and was evidenced in part by the civilization in Sumer, which seemed to have, sprang up fully grown out of nowhere. And then there was an argument between those who liked the humans and those who didn't really like them. And there was wild ones that were breeding and going off on their own, and that might be related to the flood, but that some were saved by the one that had helped to create us and wanted to maintain us. And then there's the view that they left, where I might be more personally inclined to believe never left. Okay, so they're viewed as a reptilian race. Perhaps there are more than one reptilian race, but they are at least one of them. And not the shapeshifters, the Dracos, but perhaps they are. Now, we are technologically to a point where we might be more able to recognize them. Another thing I am not sure of is if this is going to be a physical planet. Our planets are physical. Or if it's an interdimensional planet, which would make viewing it maybe more difficult until it hits the gravitational fields of other planets in our solar system or vibrations from our sun, which will make it more visible to us. One thing I do find interesting from, Zachariah Sitchin's accounts was he portrayed it as having an elliptical